Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rusty 78609 in Central Texas, USA on a beautiful afternoon. It's about 65 degrees, got a little breeze out of the northwest. North is that way, so I'm kind of blocked by my cover. But this is going to be another one of my Beer 30 stories. You know what I mean? Cerveza, por favor. Boy, that's good. I hadn't even had one full one yet. But anyway, what I thought I'd tell you today is, there's certain things in your life you remember, like, your first car. I had a motor scooter and all that. But one of the things you can't forget is your first date. You understand what I'm talking about? Your first real date. Well, my first real date occurred in Kennedy, Texas, South Texas, small town, about 2,000 people, very small town. Everybody knew everybody. Of course, there was no cell phones. Television was rare. We lived out in the country. I was a country hick kid. And anyway, somehow or another, I got up enough courage. I think I was around 10 or 11 years old, in that range. And that would have made this occur around 1957 or 1958. So I actually somehow, I'm not sure if my parents and her parents didn't arrange it or what, but anyway, I had a date. I may have asked her, but I can't imagine that I did. I guess I did. But anyway, I asked this girl on a date to go to the Rialto Theater in Kennedy, the little downtown movie place, on a Saturday afternoon around 2 o'clock. So we lived out in the country, and my mother had to go into town to do something. She had a little dress shop in town. So she went in to do something with that and dropped me off at my grandmother's house, which was about 3 blocks from where this girl lived. And I was so nervous I couldn't spit, you know what I mean? I had on my starched blue jeans and my tennis shoes, my PF Flyers, if y'all remember those, and a shirt that my mother made. My mother made shirts from either feed sacks or material she'd buy. I always thought they were pretty, but some of the girls in school made fun of them. I thought they were nice shirts. Anyway, enough said about that. So I arrived at my grandmother's early, of course, and fooled around there a little bit. And then I decided I'd walk over to, we'll call her Sharon. That's not her real name, but we'll call her that. And so on the way over there, of course, I was nervous, man. I'm telling you, I was a pretty shy kid, actually. And but anyway, I walked over, and for some reason, we thought this girl was pretty. I mean, all the guys my age, we thought she was beautiful. Well, let me tell you about her. She was taller than I was by about 4 inches, which was not unusual for young ladies back then at that age. And she had hairy arms, hairy legs, and she had real thick eyebrows. She had dark hair, kind of olive-colored skin. Her arms were long. She was skinny, basically. She every time I look at olive oil in my RV, that thing that guy sent me, it reminds me of her. I mean, I'm not too sure about the feet, but no, she really wasn't. I don't know what there was about her, but we all thought she was neat. Anyway, here I go to her house a few blocks away, and finally got up enough courage to knock on the door, and sure enough, her mother answered. Good God, you could have pushed me over with a feather. And because I thought she'd answer and we'd just walk off. Well, anyway, the mother invited me in, of course, and gave me the interview. I guess you'd call it. How are you? Where are you from? What's your dad do? And all that kind of stuff. Of course, it was a small town. Everybody knew my parents. And then we left the house, and I was still nervous. We were walking side by side, and I remember I had a friend who was a little older and more mature, and he was giving me the tips on what you do on a date, you understand? He said, now what you got to do, Rusty, he said, when you're walking towards the movie, you just take her hand and hold her hand while you're walking and talking. And then when you get inside the movie theater, just put your arm around her and, you know what I mean, and enjoy the movie and, make small talk and all that. Anyway, so I'm walking down the street there, and I'm thinking, okay, you got to hold her hand. You just somehow you got to do it. I couldn't. My hand wouldn't move. I mean, it was stuck to the side of my body like I was paralyzed. And so we didn't hold hands. That was out. And as far as small talk, there was some damn small talk. How about none? I mean, basically, she was as nervous as I was, I'm sure, or maybe more so, but I doubt it. But she looked good, and so we walked on to the movie, and of course I had $1 and something, $1.50. I was wealthy back then. It cost 12 cents to get in the movie, so that was 24 cents to get in the movie. It was and they had a little snack bar there, and you could get a Coke was a nickel, and popcorn was a nickel, and hot dogs were a dime. And so we loaded up. I don't know. I think we just got popcorn and a Coke because it was too close to lunchtime or something. I don't remember. I think it was popcorn and a Coke, maybe a candy bar too. I can't remember. But anyway, so and once you got past the snack bar, then you had to get by Dolores. She took the tickets. She didn't. She was kind of an usher, but she didn't usher you to your seat. She just took the tickets. So anyway, I gave her the tickets, and we go in and sit down. And I couldn't tell you to this day what the name of that movie was. I'm not even sure there was one. I never saw anything. They could have had a blank screen for all I know, But anyway, God, it was nutty. They had the old projector was up above, and a guy named Rex. He was crippled and drove a little Metropolitan car. I remember that. He was the projectionist, I guess you'd call him. And you knew everybody, and there wasn't very many people in the movie theater, a few. And, here I am on my first date, and everybody's looking, like, oh, there's Rusty, and what's her name? There's old Rusty. That my buddies are in there, you understand? You got to know they were going nuts. They were giggling and pointing and doing all kind of crazy shouting and shit. Anyway, we're sitting there. I guess I was watching the movie, the best I can recall. I didn't faint. And, she was as nervous as I was, because if I asked a question or made a statement, she kind of grunted or, yeah, okay, or something like that. Nothing really sharp. But you got to remember, back then, guys, we didn't have movies where you learned about the opposite sex by watching the movie, okay? We didn't have YouTube and all that crap. We had a movie theater that you had to physically go to see anything on, like TV. We didn't even have a TV out in the country where I lived. So, to learn about, the opposite sex, you didn't learn it from YouTube or television movies or going to porno things on the internet. We didn't have any of that, none. And so, it was the old way, if you held a girl's hand, that was about as close to sex as you could get. And if you put your arm around her, oh shit, that was close, boy. But anyway, so we're sitting there in the movie, and I remember thinking about putting my arm around her. My arm would not move. I would say, okay, I would actually kind of concentrate, say, okay, now just kind of, fold your arm and kind of lift it up. And I was scared I'd touch her, you know what I mean? That's nuts, isn't it? But that's so true, man. And, but anyway, I survived the movie, and we got out of the theater, and I didn't have to have her mother said to be back by 5. Well, it was only, by the time we got out of the movie, it was about, it might have been 4 o'clock or a little before, so we had some time to kill. And I said, you want to go to Sellers Drugstore? And she said, yeah. I said, we'll go down and get something there, some ice cream or something. Because, you could go down, you could get a banana split for 30 cents. Well, I had enough money for that. And besides that, if I went to the drugstore, Sellers, all I did was sign a ticket. Sometimes I didn't even do that. And I don't know who paid for it. I guess Buddha or the Great Spirit, because I never heard anything about them. Whenever I ordered stuff at Sellers Drugstore, or I went into any store downtown, they just made up a ticket, and I never signed them. Every now and then at Sellers, they'd ask me to sign, and I would. But, somehow my parents settled up with them, is all I can tell you. And that was for buying clothes. That was everything. Everything on the main street, which was one narrow street, that was taken care of. So we go in there, and I ordered a banana split, which I always did. And she ordered the same thing. I thought, well, that's interesting. But it didn't bother me. We sat there and talked about stuff, and then we got into the giggling shit and, and laughing. And, we were getting along just fine. And anyway, we finished banana split, And walking back home, I thought, well, I am going to hold her hand. I'm just going to reach over there and hold her hand. I couldn't do it, guys. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. There's. So anyway, that was the first date. I walked her back home. I was never so glad to get rid of anybody in my life, and I'm sure she said the same thing when she got inside her house. She said, "Thank God I'm still alive." But we both survived it, and that was it. And then I'll throw in this just for flavor, since it's kind of a short story, or reasonably short. I don't know how long this thing been going on. About 10 minutes. We'll go ahead and do this one too. This is one that goes along with your first date. I'll throw in my first kiss. Okay, now this happened probably maybe 2 years later, in that range, when I got my quote first kiss, and I'll tell you about it. In the schools back then, you had cloakrooms. Okay, cloakrooms were a place you hung your coats and stuff in the cold weather. But in Texas, most times it's too warm. We didn't have coats, but we would put our little satchels in there. We didn't have backpacks or any of that stuff. You had these little things that you zipped, and you put your stuff in this thing, and it folded, and then you zipped it closed. I can't remember what there was a name for them, but you had your pencils and stuff in there. All your school supplies that you needed were in there, and you'd always stick that in the cloakroom, or at least we did then. And so every now and then I'd have to go into the cloakroom to get a pencil or a pencil sharpener, because they had those little pencil sharpeners that you twisted on your pencil, the number 2 hard lead pencils with an eraser. And so anyway, I went to the cloakroom one time, and there was this girl there. I won't mention her name because she's deceased, and I certainly don't want to ruin her reputation. But anyway, she came in the cloakroom one day, and we got to know each other. I mean, we didn't kiss in the cloakroom. God, that would have been unforgivable. Later on we did, but not then. And but we were kind of friends. I mean, I always liked her. She was just a good friend, And I didn't even think of her as a girl. She was pretty as hell. She had beautiful legs, and but anyway, and other things. But that afternoon, one afternoon, I was going to try out for Little League or play on a Little League team. You had to sign up, the Little League stuff. My mother was supposed to have done it, but she didn't. And so, but I didn't know it. So I went to Western Auto and bought me a glove. I didn't know anything about baseball. I didn't get to play baseball out in the country by myself. And so all the friends I had in town, they knew how to play baseball because they played it all the time. Because they didn't have to feed the hogs and plow and do all that crap that I had to do. I didn't know what baseball was other than I'd seen them do it every now and then. And when I went to town on the weekends, the last thing I wanted to do was waste time playing baseball. I'd go to a movie or, just check out downtown. That was exciting for me. But anyway, enough said about that. I was at the Little League field. We only had one. And sitting I went to the coach and told him where I was, and he said, "Well, man, he said, son, your name's not on here." And I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Well, I guess your mom forgot to pay the dues or sign you up or something." And I said, "Okay, well, I really didn't want to play anyway. It didn't hurt me a bit. I could return the glove," which I didn't. I kept it. I thought it was kind of neat. And I'd throw a ball up in the air and then catch it in the glove. That was baseball to me. I'd throw it straight up in the air and then catch it. I thought I did that for hours sometime. That tells you my beginning, right? But anyway, out in the country. But anyway, so I was sitting in the stands there with my glove on like an idiot, and me and there were parents there, so there was a few people in the stands, and I was sitting there, and here came this girl, my cloakroom girl, okay, because she lived right across the street from the baseball field. So here she comes, and she sat down right beside me. Oh, I was so proud I could have just spit, and because I liked her, we were just cool, and anyway. I said, let's don't sit here. Let's go over to the scout hut. I don't know where I came up with that crap. I certainly wasn't worldly as far as women were concerned, but I didn't want to sit there in the stands. I wanted to kiss this girl, and for some reason. And I think she did too, or I thought she did then. So anyway, we go to the scout hut, which is right next to the Little League park, but you could go to the back of the scout hut, and there were some steps there where you could sit, and nobody could see you in the neighborhood or from the Little League field. It was totally private. And since I had been a Boy Scout, or may have still been for all I know, I was pretty young, we sat there on those steps and talked. Well, anyway, we got into this crap about kissing, okay? And so she said, let's do it. So we did. We kissed. But it was just a lip mash. You know what I mean? It wasn't that suck face stuff, with a tongue stuck out there 4 inches. None of that crap. Just you just mash lips. Well, hell, I was so dizzy from that. If we'd have done anything else, I'd have probably fainted. No, and we did it once. And then I thought, man, I just feel good all over more than anywhere else. This is good stuff. So anyway, we hugged up real close and did it again. We stood up and kissed, and I was right in the middle of, or just finishing up puberty. My voice was changing, and God Almighty, you got to know my hormones were running over me, but anyway, that was life in a small town in Kennedy, Texas. But you didn't know anything about anything because there was you only had the movies, and back then the movies, a sex scene in a movie was like a kiss. Or somebody holding hands, an X-rated movie then, we never saw an X-rated movie in Kennedy, Texas. They came out with something called B movies, and one of them was Bridget Bardot and something, and I can't remember. I think you saw her in her bra one time. I mean, in the whole 2-hour movie, that was it. And then there was a Summer Place with Troy Donahue and somebody else, and I think they kissed, and they were in swimsuits on the beach, and that was a B movie. B. I don't know what the B rating was, but they weren't bad at all. But we thought they were. I mean, we'd wait for those scenes. I mean, we'd just sit there with our tongues hanging out, waiting for those moments. And I'm sure all of you guys did if you're as old as I am. I'm 73, and that was back in the late 50s. And so anyway, guys, I'm going to have a little swallow here, and then I'll end the video. But you got to remember your first date and your first kiss. And I'll go to the next step later and do it in a separate video. Yeah, we'll cover the third step in another video because I was a little older and figured out there was another step after the kiss. But anyway, guys, having said that, this is Rusty78609 in Central Texas, USA, saying thumbs up, carpe diem, adios, bye-bye. Buy anything you want, anytime you want. But if you think about it, using the link to Amazon products in the description of all of my videos. Why? Because I get a small commission. It doesn't cost you 1 penny. What else? Drink plenty of water. 3 or 4 quarts a day won't hurt you. It's good for you. It'll help you avoid gout, kidney stones, and it'll help you lose weight because you're full of water. What else? Take deep breaths. Breathe in deep, hold it for a few seconds, and breathe out slowly. Why? Because that relieves stress, and relieving stress does what? Lowers your blood pressure, guys. You got to know that. And then what else? Stretch, swivel, walk. I've done my exercises twice today, and I try to do it every day, at least once for sure. And what else? Stand guard at the door of your mind. Don't let negative Nancy or negative Ned get inside of your head. This is yours. All this stuff up here is your brain. That's where your thoughts are formed, basically. That's you. And so having said that, guys, if you can't remember your first date and your first kiss, you're dead. Okay, it's over. Anyway, guys, thumbs up. Adios. Bye-bye.